Okay, we're continuing now with the Dvar Malchut, a speech that the Lubavitcher Rebbe gave on the holiday of Shavuot, right before the holiday of Shavuot, 1991. And if you remember what the Rebbe is talking about, we've been talking about this for the last few days. We're talking about unity, and that God wants the world to be dynamic, always moving, always changing, and we have to be always moving and always changing. And especially we're always moving and always changing in our closeness to God. Because God is not just an idea, a religious idea, that you just shut off the world and get close to God and that's it. No, we have to do both. We have to shut off the world and come close to God. And then we have to shut off our connection to God and come close to the world. Not really shut off, but you say to disconnect ourselves from our tremendous love of God and get back into the world and do what we're supposed to do. So we have to, on one hand, be surrendered to God. And then on the other hand, we have to be active in the world with God in our mind. So maybe in a simple way, we can say that God should be in our heart. We have to have tremendous love, burning love for God. And then after that, we have to have God only in our mind. We have to be in the world and dealing with the world. And the main connection we have for God is not so much an emotional one of love and awe and fear. It's more an intellectual one. We remember the love and fear that we had before, going back and forth. How can you do both opposites? How can you do both opposites? So one answer is you don't do two opposites. You have certain people that they're holy people and that they devote themselves to God. And then there's other people that they come to the holy people once in a while for inspiration. That's one way around. But that doesn't work in Judaism. The Judaism, we're called the Mamlechet Kohanim B'Goy Kadosh. The Jewish people are a nation of priests and a holy people. We're a nation, like every other nation, right? We have a country and we have the leaders and we have needs, water, electricity of the nation. And we have an identity. But on the other hand, we're priests. Our whole thing is to be connected to God. We're the ones that sit separate and people come to us. And, for inspiration, like the priests, right? The priests are separate from everybody. They're different. They're removed. So the Jewish people have to be removed from the world and in the world. We have to be the ones that ask the questions and the ones that are being asked the questions. And it says not only that, we're a holy nation, Goy Kadosh. We're a holy nation. Holy means we've got nothing to do with the world. A Goy, a nation, means we have everything to do with the world. We're a nation, right? We have our nation like every other nation in the world. We have a country, but it's a holy nation. Huh? That's all it is. How can you unite these two things together? How can you unite these two things together? Is it possible to unite them together? This, in a way, is, I know I talk about this, but I have to go back to it. This is, in a way, the big, how do you say, mistake of Zionism. That Zionism thinks that, okay, let there be something holy, but it's not us. Maybe there's people that are holy people, the Lubavitcher Rebbe or something like that. He's a holy guy, holy people. But the Jewish people, we're a regular nation. We're regular like everybody else, and we have a regular country and everything. And we have to be normal. You want to get anything done in the world, you have to be normal. You want to be holy, okay, but it's not for us. Not for us. Okay, we'll let a few holy people come in, but not for us. Comes along Judaism and says, no, every Jew is holy. And every Jew has to be occupied in the world. And every Jew is a priest that's removed from the rest of mankind. And every Jew is part of mankind and not a priest. How does it work together? It says there has to be some one factor that unites them all, that enables there to be two opposites simultaneously. And that we said before, is peace. That at Mount Sinai there came peace to the world. Peace means pure godliness. God is the one that he created this whole business. He created the world. He put the Jews in the world. He has created holiness, and he wants the Jews to unite holiness and the world with holiness. And that makes peace. It makes the world as dynamic. Every human being is dynamic, alive, happy, joyous, practical, caring about one another, and at the same time, totally devoted to the creator of the universe, removed from the world, serious, etc. Says that's what's called God's kingship. This idea of revealing God's essence of God's kingship, that God is the king of kings, and that we are servants of God and we surrender ourselves. This was done on Mount Sinai. That's what happened on Mount Sinai, the uniting of all these opposites. The Jewish people became the servants of the Creator himself. And we said the servant of a king is a king. He's the king. At Mount Sinai, there was the revelation of I am God, your God. Revelation of God's essence at Mount Sinai in physical seeing. People physically saw God. Now, what does that mean? In order to see something, there has to be like a background. There has to be some sort of a, how do you say, a perspective, a format or something. You can't just see. For instance, look up, you see the sky, right? If you see the sky, what do you see the sky? The sky is in relation to the earth, to the ground. So you can see the sky. But if all there was the sky, and you never knew about the ground, you wouldn't be looking at the sky. I guess maybe the astronauts, right? And they're not looking into outer space, unless except relation to the rocket ship or the land, whatever. So how can you see God? There's nothing except for God. God is creating everything. There's no background. There's nothing other than God. And if you see God in some sort of a framework, then that's not God, because God includes everything. So what does it mean everyone saw God? What does it mean you saw? So the answer to that is that they saw reality. They saw reality. When we look at something, we're not really looking at true reality. Here, let's take an example. Here we have a pen, right? We have a pen, right? This pen, how do we do this? Oh, gotta make this thing up. Right, this pen. Is this a real pen? Well, it's not really a real pen. Why? Because it goes only up to here. Here, there's no pen. Here, there's no pen. Here, there's no pen. This is a small pen. Let's make a real pen. Make a pen bigger. A bigger pen. Let's say it's bigger. It gets bigger and bigger. It's bigger until finally the pen gets really big and it covers over everything. That's a real pen. It's not limited in any way. There's nothing except for it. That is a real pen. But still, I'm holding on to it. What if I wasn't holding on to it? Good. So this is a real pen. But once again, it's not so limited. There's pens they're green. This is only blue. This is only one example. So let's make it all the colors and all the shapes and everything. Then it's not a pen anymore. It's not a defined thing. It doesn't make any sense. So whatever we're looking at, by definition, it's not true reality. It's just defined reality. Right? What is true reality is God. And that we can't comprehend because we're part of defined reality ourselves. So are our eyes. But the fact is God really is true reality. And that's what reality is. And we're put into this world, human beings, we're being created by God. Somewhere inside of us is true reality. And this true reality can be expressed through our eyes and our nose and our mouth. And that's what we want to reveal in the world. That the world, the limited world, becomes truly real. That's what happened in Mount Sinai, was the revelation of God's essence. And we could see, our eyeballs enabled us to see infinity, real reality. What does that mean? I don't know. I mean, I was there, but I don't remember. But deep in our souls, we're sure of it. And this was the surrender. This caused the surrender of all the Jewish people to God, because all the Jewish people felt that all there is God. It's just, that's reality. Al Yadei Zeh, by means of this, that the Jewish people, they were given free will, and we have free will. And we said, we'll do whatever you want to, God, and then we'll understand it. By means of this, it says, they attached. So, by means of that, it says that, right, that the angels tied on to each and every Jew 2 crowns. One crown, that's what it says in the Midrash, that the angels, when they heard the Jews say, Naseh v'nishma, that's what we're learning in Likkutei Torah. The angels said, who taught the Jews this big secret? That we say, Oseh Dvar Lishma, the call, that we do what God says, and then we feel God. Who taught the Jews this? As soon as the Jews said, we'll surrender ourselves to God, and then we'll understand, it says the angels gave every Jew 2 crowns. 2 crowns. One was because they said, we will do, and the other one they said, we will understand. In more detail, there is 3 crowns. It says in the Midrash, 3 crowns. The Jewish people, Shebnei HaMedina Asu Lamelech, there were 3 crowns, says that the people of the world made for the king. The Jewish people gave 1 crown to God, and he put that crown on his head. That's what the Midrash says. And 2 of the crowns that were given to the king took and put on the heads of the Jews. That's what the Midrash says. The king had 3 crowns. 1 crown he put on his head. The other crown God put on his head. The other crown God gave to the Jews because they said, we will do. And the 3rd crown he gave because they said, we will understand. Okay. So by means, now what is this crown? We learned also in Kabbalah, a little bit of the ideas of Kabbalah, that there's what's called Keter, the crown, which is God's will, and even deeper, God's pleasure. Okay, so let's see what this means. By means that the Jews surrendered themselves to God, they inaugurated, coronated. They coronated the king because their surrender to God reached in front of God, to God's essence. Now, again, we have to remember, God created the world for a purpose. That's the whole thing of the Torah. The whole story of the Torah is God created the world for a purpose. Right? You're in the world. God created the world for a purpose. That's what happened when the Jews were on Mount Sinai. Right? They knew they were in Egypt. They knew they suffered. God said, you suffered. It's all worthwhile. I'm going to tell you now why I'm creating you. It's for a purpose. As soon as the Jews said, wow, this is what we want, we're surrendering to you, God said, that's the purpose. You got it. You got it. God was happy. That's the crown that he put on his head. The Sham there, Ma'orad, aroused, and from there it is drawn down God's will to be a king. And by means of this was created the whole entire world. From until even this physical world down here below. Like it says this is what we say in Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah, we also make God a king. And like it was when God gave the Torah, that together with this, that the Jews received God's kingship, that's 1 point. 1 point. That's what we said, that 1 point. And everything, that's the one utterance. Remember, we said that God created the world? And because the Jews got the point, the inner point, that's this point of peace, we said, that unites all opposites. That God is the king. By means of that, they can afterwards, the Jewish people will do the commandments, all the details. Because in reality, they're just doing 1 commandment. What God wants. I'm doing 1 commandment. What God wants. God wants me to put on tefillin. Okay, that's just aspects of the same thing. It's like a person loves his father. Whatever you say, Dad, I'll do. Okay, take out the garbage, shine up my shoes, right? All these different things. It's just 1 thing you're doing. I'm doing what my father wants. The same thing as the Torah. I'm doing what the creator of the universe wants. This is a little bit hard to comprehend, but it's the truth. And that's why the Jewish people are here to bring this truth to the world. Once the world has this truth that God is the king and creating the whole universe and he's creating it for a purpose, then every human being feels simultaneously surrendered to God. I'm nothing. And on the other hand, once again, but God is creating me, so I got to do something. I mean, he wants me to do something. He's creating me in the world. That's in a way that all of the details, then they become a menucha, they become calm. There's peace. Because you have this one point that everything is united behind. By means of this, similarly, is also the Torah itself. The Torah, in addition, how the Torah is in God's essence, it was there before the world was created, but it said then God came down on Mount Sinai. God spoke all of these words to say that God gave the Torah in a way that the Torah is no longer in heaven. God put the Torah in the hands of the Jewish people. That's all the great rabbis that learned the Talmud, disparagingly referred to as the Pharisees. These were holy of holy people that they knew how to raise the dead, it says. And God put the Torah into their hands. That's what's called the oral Torah. Ella, Davka, Lamata, but even more, the Torah was given in the most physical things, Lamata, below. Like it says, the Torah was made, Hachrata Seichel Beit Din, that what we decide, what the rabbis decide, you have to have a true rabbi, there's criteria, what's a rabbi? What the rabbis decide is that's the law. Now God really put himself into trouble over here. Because, if God gave the Torah and he said the rabbis have to decide, so who's a rabbi? So the rabbis decide that also. So, it has to be a person that has fear of God and all these things. What stands up a reform rabbi? And he says, I'm also a rabbi. A rabbi is a person that puts a kippah on his head and he maybe grows a beard, maybe not. And he says, I'm a rabbi. And I'm telling you, you can drive on Shabbat. And I'm telling you, you can eat whatever you want to. And I'm telling you, you can marry anyone you want to. I'm a rabbi. Rabbis do what they want. So God, by putting himself into all these details, he got himself into trouble. But God got himself into trouble before that. Before he gave the Torah, he put our souls into the world. And our souls being in the world, we call the shots ourselves. Right? Every Jew is a reform rabbi. Every Jew says, I'm the one, I'm God, I decide what to do. So God gave the Torah in the world so that the Torah will deal with all of these doubts and all of these mistakes and all of these misconceptions, which are okay to make mistakes. And God made it, that, how do you say? He made it very, very probable that we would make mistakes and we would continue making them and we would justify them. That's how he made man. But nevertheless, God put the Torah in the world that there is truth and that we can come to the right conclusions in the physical world. That's the whole idea of the physical court. And then you will come to the Kohanim or to the judges in those days as they are in the world. But Davka Sham, and specifically there in the world, they draw down this, what's called Menucha and Shalom. Right? A person would say, listen, I'm willing to listen to God, but I'm not going to listen to Moses. Or I'm willing to listen to Moses, but I'm not going to listen to Aaron. Or I'm willing to listen to Moses and Aaron, but I'm not going to listen to the rabbis of today. Why should I listen to these rabbis? How can they compare to Moses? What? I'm the same thing as them. So it says you have to get into the details. Godliness is found specifically in the details. Together with the devil is in the details, God is in the details. And you can take your choice, whatever you want to. And that's why God put the Torah in the world, that you'll make the right choice. That's why the Torah is called the tree of good and evil. The written Torah is called the tree of life, but the oral Torah is called the tree of good and evil because it deals with good and evil, purifies. From this comes the power. But we have the power to make the right choices and to feel inside the Jewish conscience that I want to do what God says. I'm not looking for loopholes. That's given the power of Torah. To make rest in the world. When you do the right thing, there's rest, and even more, there's happiness. There's happiness. Generally speaking, the people who go against the Torah, they're not happy. Or at least the Jewish part of what their life is not happy. Or if it is, they have to bring in, a rock and roll band or whatever it is, a belly dancer or something like that, in order to make them happy. But the essence of the Torah itself is not a happy thing by them. And automatically, so really happiness is lacking from your life. I'm not saying that everyone who learns the Torah is happy all the time. It's sometimes exactly the opposite. The Torah can make a person miserable. But that means you got the whole thing wrong. And that's what the world is about, that you can get it wrong. The Jewish people, 40 days after they worshiped the golden calf, they went to the church, right? They went to worship the golden calf. So, that's what the world is about. The Torah comes to purify the most basic and hedonistic and mistaken urges that we can possibly have. Wrong. All your days by means of this, we reveal the ultimate purpose of the whole entire creation, and that's a very happy thing. It gives a person certainty. And that's why we have the stories about Jews that are willing to die on the stake, right? In the time of the Inquisition. I mean, just like only a few hundred years ago, the church was doing the same thing as the Muslims are doing today. They were burning people at the stake, and they were chopping people up and raping and murdering and pillaging and all these other things. Right? There was like a religious pastime, to make a pogrom or make a this. And it was a regular thing. And Jews stood firmly and said, "Hey, I'm not going to bow down. I'm not going to bow down. I'm happy to be a Jew." What are you happy about? We're going to kill you. We're going to burn you on the stake. He says, yeah, but the happiness I have of being a Jew is incomparable to your happiness. You think you're going to go to heaven. Let's say you go to heaven. I don't want it. I want to be a Jew. The most happy thing in the world is to be a Jew. Even if they're going to burn me, they're going to this. Happy thing. Does that make sense? Doesn't make any sense. But that's what we got at Mount Sinai. And that happy feeling is going to permeate the whole entire world till there'll be the point that no one will want to burn the Jews or people who want to serve God. But meanwhile, this point of Judaism is what unites all the dynamic opposites of the world. And that's what we got at Mount Sinai. Now we can understand the whole service of the Jewish people as a preparation for the giving of the Torah, which is going to be next Tuesday night. After the Jewish people, let's see where this goes up to. Oh, not so long. 1 second. 1 minute. Let's see just how much we got over here to do. Okay, let's try. Here we go. After the Jewish people left Egypt, then there was by them the service of 49 days of counting the Omer. 1 minute. Yeah, okay. 49 days. Why isn't this doing my thing? Here we go. 49 days of counting the Omer. What is counting the Omer, we said before, is refining the 7 emotions, all 7 aspects of each of the 7 emotions, and from chesed, from the aspect of love, which is in love, to kingship, which is in kingship. This is serving God, dealing with all the changes every single day from level to level. And after these 49 days, and we finish what's called the kingship of kingship, God, the lowest action of action, right? We refine even our most simple, or at least we deal with our habitual or natural things that we do. That's Malchut Shabbat Malchut. Then we become totally surrendered to the Creator, which we said that's the idea of a poor person. Remember, we said a poor person in some ways is better than a rich person. A poor person, he just wants God. He just wants to be with God. A rich person, he wants a little bit of money, success. He wants pleasure. He wants the children. He wants this. A poor person, he just wants to be with God. That's what we said. The poor person is by means of this we can reach, by this humility of being poor in front of God, realizing that everything we have is just a gift from God. Then we get to the 50th day. The 50th day, we don't count it. This is a gift from above. And that's when God gave the Torah. That's the crown. That's the crown. That's the inside of the crown in front of God. This is the revealing of the Torah. The Torah is God's crown, God's will, God's pleasure. God said, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am God, your God that took you out of Egypt. Until the way that this is, I become your God, singular, your power in your life. Together with this, the Jewish people also received all the big revelations of the order of creation. Namely, not just the Torah, but they received the whole entire, how do you say, the whole entire kishkis of creation. Not just the highest came down to the low, but all the levels in between also were revealed to the Jews. It says they revealed the Meisim Merkava, the chariot of God. Some say it means the Merkava means all the letters of God that Merkava, that you put them together to make the world. God came down on Mount Sinai. This is God's throne of glory. In addition to all the revelations and all the physical things and the richness that the Jews had from they left Egypt, they had riches that they took out of Egypt. And it says that when the Jews crossed over Yam Suf and it buried all the Egyptian army, all their rings and their bling blings or their crowns or whatever they took out, and their golden diamond-studded swords or maces, whatever. So they took it out. It all washed up. It all washed up on the sea, and there was more riches after they crossed the sea that were washed up than they took out of Egypt. So the Jews had physical riches, and they had spiritual riches, and everything got the whole thing in Mount Sinai, and they weren't happy. The Rebbe once had he wrote somebody a letter that we see how much our life depends on our attitude. The Rebbe said that Adam, first man, he had the whole world. He had everything was his. Everything was his. Everything he wanted, he had. Right? Everything he wanted. He had a wife that was directly from God. God gave it to him, everything he wanted, and he wasn't happy. Everything he wanted. Everything you could possibly have. He had the whole world, and he was not happy. And he ate from the tree. On the other hand, there were Jews that were in Auschwitz, and everything was taken from them, including their comfort, including their certainty of what's going to be tomorrow, or their health, and everything was taken. And nevertheless, they said, I believe in the coming of Moshiach. Ani ma'amin b'bias Moshiach. According to all this, so they were happy, they were positive. So we see it depends on our attitude. The Jewish people at Mount Sinai, they had everything. They were like the first man. They had all the riches. God spoke to them directly. And that's what we have now every Shavuot. We have this, that's the inner point of reality that enables us to serve God with all opposites and deal with every possible surprise in the world in a positive way. I hope you know. And that, in a way, is the essence of what man is. That's what man is. As soon as people can't deal with the uncertainty of life, then they get into depression or aggression, or they take drugs or whatever, because they can't deal with the uncertainty of life. Uncertainty of life is a wonderful, good thing. Wonderful, good thing. And when we got the Torah, then there was a little point of certainty in the world, but the challenges became even greater. It's like a normal person and a doctor, right? There was a comedian, I remember, I can't remember, maybe it wasn't even Jackie Mason, the comedian. He said that Sigmund Freud was the first doctor that said to his patient, you're a maniac, get out of my office, you're crazy, right? A person that's a psychiatrist, he wants crazy people to come in. And so it's always different. But a person, you don't want problems, don't be a psychiatrist, don't be a doctor. You don't be a doctor, you don't have to deal with sick people. You deal with normal, more normal situations a little bit. But being a doctor, being a lawyer, that's a wonderful thing. Ideally, it's supposed to be, because you're dealing with difficult situations. You're trying to find truth and justice and health. And Mount Sinai, God made us all doctors and lawyers and whatever, they've been psychiatrists, that we can deal with all of the different problems in the world. And true, there's surprises, but constantly we have the power of Mount Sinai to give us this one point of calmness, calm within ourselves, that we're servants of the Creator. And everything is just an aspect of that. I hope you know, according to this, Now we can understand the whole idea that God gave us this year. Oh, the Rebbe is going to talk about Shabbat. The year that the Rebbe spoke, Shavuot came immediately after Shabbat. Every Shabbat brought about peace into the world. When Shabbat comes, this year it's 3 days after Shabbat. That's on Yom Revi'i. So the night of Tuesday is Shavuot. Okay, but still, the point is still the same point. Shabbat gives menucha. It gives rest. Why? Because Shabbos is God's day, and it gives us the feeling that God is with us all the time. God is, every first day we go back and we renew the things that were happened the first day that God created the world. On the second day, we go back to the second day God created the world. That God, on the first day, He created the whole world, brand new. Breshit Bor Elokim, the heavens and the earth. The heavens, this includes all the spiritual worlds. And the earth is all the physical worlds. By means of this is also relevant to the giving of the Torah. The giving of the Torah also puts peace in the world. You know that there's a creator. And the giving of the Torah every year, just like when on Saturday, Shabbos of every week, we go back to the creator. The same thing on Mount Sinai, on Shavuot every year, we go back to the giving of the Torah. The Torah is brand new. It's something like it was at Mount Sinai the first time. When God gave the Torah, and that's when we make the blessing, we don't say God gave the Torah. We got to say God gives the Torah. No tain, He's giving the Torah right now. And even more, in a way, the Mylin B'Kodesh, that the Torah now is even higher than it was when God gave it at Mount Sinai. Because it's been through so much experience. According to this, and also it's caused so many people to do good deeds. According to this, we can understand that when we come from Shabbat until Shavuot, like I said, that's what it was back then in 1991. But by us, it'd have to wait a couple of days. But nevertheless, when Shabbat comes into the weekdays, we find there's a special two things that we can learn. Number one, since that the preparation for Shavuot is Shabbat, like I said back then, Shavuot was immediately Motzi Shabbat. Because Shavuot, the giving of the Torah, and Shabbat both are the thing of rest, of, how do you say, calmness, a point of stability. Koleles Tochan Matan Torah. There was some scientist. What was his name? I don't know. Maybe I got this thing wrong. I remember for a long time. Anton Lavoisier could be. Anyway, he said that if there was nothing in the world is stable, and if I could find one thing in the world that was stable, I could move the whole world. But nothing is stable. Everything is not connected. But the Torah is connected. The Torah is connected to the Creator. And by means of the Torah being connected to the Creator, so by means of this, there's some little point that's immovable. It's stable. And that's what happened on Mount Sinai, and that's what happened when God gave the Torah, and that's what happened every Shabbos. Harizem Matan Nosef, this gives an additional power, an additional, I say, calmness in the time of the giving of the Torah. That when you come straight from Shabbat into the giving of the Torah, this double stresses the idea of the calmness which is in the Torah. Since that the preparation for Shavuot is Shabbat, like it was back then, 1991, that the whole thing is rest, stability. This includes the whole idea of giving of the Torah, which that's the whole Torah. It says everyone agrees that the Torah was given on Shabbat. The whole idea of the Torah is also the idea of rest. Therefore, it gives an additional power to draw down rest and certainty and stability into the giving of the Torah and into the whole entire world. And since that the time of the giving of the Torah was on the first day of the week, when the Rebbe was speaking, so this stresses even more that the Torah, this rest of Shabbat, was drawn into the world because the world was created on the first day. By us, it's talking about the fourth day when God put the lights in the heavens. It means that the world is being created brand new every single instant, drawing, and it's being created in a way that you feel that God is creating it. That gives a certain calmness into the world. And despite all the different changes and the dynamic you say the movement of everything in the world and every detail of the world, but nevertheless, there's always the stability is it's being created by God, and I'm created in order to improve it. I'm a servant. And even more, the whole novelty of the existence of the world is drawn down from the novelty of the Torah in the time the Torah was given. Like it said, when God created the world, it says Yom HaShishi, the sixth day of creation. HaShishi, that corresponds to the sixth day of Sivan, when God gave the Torah. It says if the Jews receive the Torah, then the world will exist. If not, then the world never existed. Never existed. Like it says, God looked into the Torah and he created the world. So when we feel that the Torah is really gives the stability and the blessing and the I say the certainty and the life to the world, so then it's understood that the whole novelty of the giving of the Torah this year is even more this year because the Rebbe was speaking because giving of the Shavuot came immediately after Shabbat. This is even more stresses the idea of shketa, of quiet and calmness and certainty in every matter of the world. And this is especially connected to Bamidbar, that's this Shabbos, and that we're going to have to talk about tomorrow. And now let's do the Yom Yom.